All right, welcome. My name is Roxanne Glauser, and I'm content director here for whirlidurb. And I want to welcome you to our Content Connections. It's a web series where we are going to be talking to educators from zoos and museums and cultural organizations throughout the U.S. and Canada, maybe even some from Australia. And we're going to be finding out some of these hidden gems, these resources you can use with your students. We're also going to find out how they're using technology to support their educational initiatives and their outreach programs. So today we're delighted. We have James Yasko, who is the Director of Education and Interpretation at the Hermitage, Andrew Jackson's home, and it's located about 20 miles from downtown Nashville, Tennessee. So welcome, James.
Thank you for having me.
All right, well, we are so excited. I'm very curious, and I love to learn about a lot of different things, and so this really is, I'm very excited here. So, James, I want to start with, I want you to tell us just a little bit about the Hermitage, maybe kind of their mission, what they're trying to do there at the Hermitage, and what you do there.
Sure. Well, the Hermitage is the home of President Andrew Jackson. This is the property that he owned from 1804 when he moved here to kind of this part of Nashville, is 1804. With the exception of the 8 years that he was in office as president, he lived here until he passed away in 1845. The house stayed in the family until the 1880s, and we became a museum in 1889. So what we're trying to do is to kind of support, I guess our mission is to talk and bring a little bit of context to that period of American history between the Revolution and the Civil War. It seems like in schools, it's sort of kind of what you talk about, over the course of a week, but it seems to be on a lot of standardized tests, this Jacksonian America. So that's kind of what we tried to do. And talking about Jackson in terms of good and bad. There are positives to his presidency and there are negatives to his presidency. And what we're trying to say is, hey, it's okay to be, the home of Andrew Jackson and still talk about and be honest about some of those more controversial subjects.
Wow, that is, you actually already answered one of the questions I had was, how do you handle some of those? Because, a lot of times we want to put our historical figures on kind of a pedestal and that they're all good, and that's not really a true representation, is it?
Right. No one is as good or as bad as sort of they are portrayed throughout history. One of the things that we try to do is to just be honest. I mean, it doesn't do anybody any good to kind of whitewash history and, try to make I think Jackson is a compelling figure, with his flaws and despite his flaws as well. We tell students all the time that Andrew Jackson represents the best and worst of America in the 19th century. It's okay to talk about those things as long as there is still an educational component to it. So it's not, we're not trying to put him on a pedestal. We're not trying to get him on Mount Rushmore, but we're not trying to bash him either. Just to provide some context, because like any episode in history, there's a little bit more to the story than what we remember from when we were in middle school or when we were in high school as well.
Nice. So you've already kind of led, I think you've been peeking at my notes here. You've led into my follow-up to that is...
I'm efficient. What can I say?
To touch really on that, why is it so important that our students today, know and understand history is one thing I'm curious about. And then how do you use your video conference programs? I know you have several listed on your website. How do you use those to kind of, what benefit are those for our students? Like, why is it important and what's the benefit of connecting with you guys?
Sure. The immediate answer is that it's important because it's going to be on standardized testing. So it's going to be on your standardized test. So, that's a pretty big part of what we do. A lot of the field trips and video conferences, whether it's on site or whether it's through video conferencing, is to address content that's in the curriculum. And like we were just talking about, sometimes it's pretty uncomfortable to discuss slavery, or it's uncomfortable to discuss Native American removal. We can kind of help with that. So, the quick answer is it's important because kids are going to be tested on it, which is going to affect teachers. The second part is that, because of who we are and what our mission is, we've got a lot of primary sources to back up what we're talking about, primary sources that we can give to the teacher as well.
Nice. When you were mentioning that, I was thinking back, I taught elementary school, and I was thinking of some areas where I might have to teach that might not be as confident in. And, that would be nice to be able to connect to, a place like yours, especially I know here in Texas, we have in 5th and 8th grade is when we hit our U.S. histories, and then again in high school. But then I was thinking, too, when you said the authenticity and telling the truth, to where you can have it be more than like a color sheet or a word search.
Right. All of our video conferences, we mix in primary sources to help guide a discussion. I'm kind of one of those, in our department, all of our educators, we sort of think that the more we're talking, the worse the program is going. So we want the program to be interactive. We want the students to be able to think critically and respond to what they're seeing. We just have, a little bit more experience and familiarity with some of the primary sources. So ideally, we're basically a teacher's assistant, one connection at a time.
Okay. So my follow-up, you mentioned primary sources. Does the Hermitage have any of its primary sources available through the website? Is there a way for teachers to access that? Okay.
We have thematic units for just about all of our programs, and these thematic units can be downloaded from the resources section of our website. They include, objectives. They include background information, vocabulary words, pre and post activities, the outline of the presentation, and that's important for us because that gives us a chance to tailor the program to meet what the teacher wants. So they can look at the outline of the presentation and say, hey, we cover points, say 11 through 14. We'll cover that in class next week. I'd really like to focus more on the early stuff so you can set up the rest of our unit, and we'll be happy to tailor the programs in that way. We really want to be kind of a help to this. We also have in that thematic unit links, relevant links on the internet that go to reputable sources, a bibliography, and then we're working on the Common Core standards as well. So you can download national education standards that each program conforms to.
Oh, brilliant. So now tell me, what kind of feedback are you getting from teachers and students that have connected with you through a video conference?
It's been positive, the being able to kind of address, whether that's, and for example, we had a teacher in Virginia who's now turned into a pretty good friend of mine because we talked so much about this one program we did a few years ago, that he was a high school teacher that, got kind of what was going to be on the Virginia standardized test, and Andrew Jackson and the bank war was a part of it. And he kind of emailed me and called me and said, look, this doesn't interest me at all, and I can't come up with anything that's interesting about this, so how about it? Can you? And we were able to put together a pretty good, what I feel is a pretty good presentation that we're currently using for other schools, and got an email back from the teacher at the end of the year that said that they had 97% of their students pass the history portion of the standardized test. Now, of course, I can't claim credit. I mean, I'll be happy to take credit for that, but we can't, reasonably claim credit for that. But the feedback is, what we want it to be is we want it to be informative, and we want the presentation and the stories that we tell to be compelling enough that the students are tricked into learning, that they're so compelled by the stories. History is interesting enough that it doesn't need any sort of embellishment or whitewashing to make it relevant or to make it history. We want it to be where the students come away from that, first of all, thinking that was a lot of fun, and then they realize, wow, I just passed this test, and it was all, it was helped by that presentation.
Well, and it's true. That's very human nature. We learn more when we're interested. I mean, I think that's
right.
Any subject, anything you're trying to learn, if you're interested in it, if something kind of piques your curiosity, you're going to pay more attention, you're going to learn more. Now, you mentioned that was a high school teacher you worked with, so this is time. Talk to us, grade levels, kind of where it fits. I know you said you're working on alignment with Common Core, so talk to me, grade levels. Now we can find all the topics. So let's talk grade levels and cost of your programs.
Sure. The grade levels, we tailor our content based on, the grade level. If there is a fourth grade teacher that wants to talk about the bank war, we'll try to talk them out of it first, but if they feel like their students can handle it, we'll kind of adjust the content a little bit lower. So, especially here in Tennessee, Andrew Jackson is fourth grade and eighth grade, and that may change here in the next couple of years, and high school as well. So really, it's sort of middle school. We do get some second and third grade teachers that are interested and really like our programs. So, the grade level, it's all relative. We can kind of make anything work. Given Jackson's role as president and kind of the Jacksonian democracy, civics aspect of it, that fits in pretty well with high school government, high school civics, AP US history. We've done 4 video conferences today with a school in South Florida on the rise of Jacksonian democracy. We didn't have a program that addressed that, but with enough notice, we're able to put it together to where that's something that we can do. So if you go to our website and take a look at our list of topics, you may think, well, that looks really good, but maybe there's some other topic that I want to address. With enough notice, we can put together, a program, and we won't charge you any extra for it. As far as the cost, it's about $75 per session, but the great thing about right now is that we do have a grant from the Cracker Barrel Foundation that for a limited time provides free video conferences to schools across the country. And all you really have to do is ask for it. So right now, and for a little while longer anyway, the video conferences are delivered at no charge to the school or the teacher.
Wow. Oh, that I feel like we just got a scoop here. That is awesome too. And actually I had someone asking me just last week for social studies for middle school and high school. So I'm going to be introducing you to someone very shortly. So that is fantastic. And yes, I didn't know that my stopping to have pancakes and stuff possibly supported your video conferencing. So yeah.
Exactly right. Get some hash brown casserole and think fondly of the Hermitage.
That is awesome. So that really is, and I've connected with you one of the summers at the ISTE playground at the conference. And one of the things that I always have remembered is your willingness to be so accommodating and adaptive to teachers' needs. That responsiveness, I think, is fantastic, to where it seems like you really have that strong sense of what the teachers need and how to take your expertise and just kind of mesh it in with what they're trying to do. And that is fantastic, James. I really thank you on behalf of teachers everywhere. That's fantastic.
It's our pleasure. We schedule all of our programs on demand. So any program you want at any time on any day, if we can make it work with our existing schedule, we'll do it.
Oh my gosh, that is amazing. Now talk to me a little bit, types of connections. I see you can connect video conferencing. Are you doing any streaming? Talk to us about your technology.
Sure, we can connect with Polycoms, Tandbergs, or with schools that don't have either one of those things. So we can send you an email link, and if you don't have a Polycom or a Tandberg, we can connect regardless, and you'll get the same experience that you would through a Polycom or a Tandberg. Streaming is it's in the works. What we'd love to do is to be able to do live mansion tours. But given that the walking area in the mansion is a little bit small, it probably wouldn't be a great experience. If we had a group of tourists, walking through the mansion, it would be distracting for them. It would be distracting for any students that heard, somebody talking behind. So what we're working on is being able to transmit some video of the inside of the mansion, just to give kind of a better experience. We're trying to get some Wi-Fi hotspots set up to where we could do some programs outside. That way students can actually see some of the property rather than an American flag that hides the mess that is behind that American flag.
Nice, because I actually got to visit the Hermitage, and it really is fantastic. The grounds are fantastic, and just walking through. So I think we'll really be looking forward to that. Any of that multimedia, I think the schools would really, really enjoy that, because a lot of schools, when we talk to them and they get that idea of the virtual field trip, it's the first thing that comes to mind is that walk-through experience. And so
Sure.
we've been trying to explain to them, really, it's like having a co-teacher, somebody that is that expert in the content. So that would be a nice thing to add, is that kind of element there. Well, now, James, is there anything that you'd like to add that I didn't ask you? And then after that, just go into tell us where we can find you. So, anything else you want to add, and then mailing list, Twitter, Facebook. Talk to us how we can find you.
Sure. The big thing is that we will do whatever you need us to do. We will, we want to be that resource when it comes to kind of an understudied, kind of glossed over period of American history. So if if you have an idea for a program, if there's something that you think your students would be interested in, even if it's not a video conference and you've got students that are doing a project and you want to email, have students send email, questions by email for a project, we'll be happy to accommodate those and answer those questions and send them back. So connecting with the Hermitage doesn't just have to be through video conferencing. We'll be happy to help out in any way that we can. Twitter, we are at 7th President. That's the numeral 7 and then TH President. Same on Facebook, I believe. And we do have a YouTube channel where we've started doing some short videos. We call it Story Time with James, and I tell weird stories about Andrew Jackson that take about 3 to 5 minutes. So, basically whatever we can do, we will do it.
Okay, this is fantastic. Well, James, I want to thank you so much for joining us here on our Content Connections. Like I said, we're just starting it this year, and we're just going to try to connect with as many people we can and collect these person-to-person conversations and then share with people. So I love what you said to invite the Hermitage in, kind of as your understudy. I love that thought, having that expert co-teacher there with you, and also love that they can just email you questions. Kids are going to love that. At 7th President, I'm going to go follow that and see what you're up to, as well as some of that story time with James. Now, I'm going to give away the time of year here. It is October. Are there any haunted rooms, anything like that? I am fascinated with some ghost hunter stories. So do you have anything like that for us?
We do. Do you want one right now?
Let's take a little quick one here and then we'll wrap it up. What do you have?
Okay, all right. So let me pull this up for you. And we became a museum in 1889. And so here, let me get this, and it'll provide a little bit of a... Here we go. See a picture of those parlors there? Mm-hmm. Okay, that front parlor where you see the gold sword and that fireplace on the left, that's called the front parlor. It's what I like to refer to as Andrew Jackson's man cave. It's where he kept all of his cool stuff and his souvenirs that he'd used to try to impress people that came to visit. So when the Ladies Hermitage Association took over in 1889, and they are still our governing body today, next year is the 125th anniversary of the preservation of the Hermitage, things had sort of fallen apart a little bit since the death of Andrew Jackson in 1845. So they had to do some restorations and renovations to get the Hermitage of the mansion to where it was ready to be open to the public as the home of Andrew Jackson. Well, that first day that they took over, the chairwoman of the board, her name was Mary Doris, she and the treasurer of the board decided that they were going to stay at the Hermitage in that front parlor until they could find someone that would be there to kind of make some of those improvements and restorations. So they arrived on a Saturday afternoon in July 1889, which is miserably hot here in Middle Tennessee, and they went outside to pay their respects to Jackson at the tomb. He and his wife are buried here on the grounds. They come back inside when it starts to get dark, and they try to go to sleep. They turn out the lanterns, and it's just pitch black. And in the middle of the night, they heard a crash coming from the pantry. And then they heard another crash and another, and it was like someone was picking up a plate and dropping it, and picking up another plate and dropping it on the ground over and over and over again. Directly above the parlors are the guest rooms. Coming from the guest rooms, they heard chains dragging over the ground, and then the front door and the back door swung open at the exact same time, banged against the inside of the wall, and they heard a horse. And it was so loud, they said it was as though General Jackson himself had mounted his war charger, leading his troops towards some unseen enemy. This horse charged right through the hallway, out the back steps, and down onto the cobblestones outside. As soon as they lit a lamp, everything stopped. The crashing of the plates in the pantry, the chains on the second floor, and the front door and the back door slammed shut. The craziest part of the story for me is that they actually stayed another night, and the second night they heard the exact same things going on, and never found any evidence of anything in the pantry on the second floor, and there certainly were not any hoof prints running through the hallway. The only logical thing they could assume was that they had encountered the ghost of Andrew Jackson.
Okay.
And we can do a story of we can do a program of ghost stories too.
Oh my God. Okay, that one. Yes, I made a note of that one too. And you know what? Thank you. You have demonstrated to us you have quite a fine storytelling ability there. So James, that was
thank you.
That was wonderful. Well, I tell you what, I'm going to get this all written up, and I want to thank you, James Yasko, Director of, let me make sure I have it, Education and Interpretation from the Hermitage near Nashville, Tennessee. James, thank you so much for joining us on our Content Connections, and I hope you have a wonderful school year and have a lot of students coming that you can teach them a little more about our President Andrew Jackson. Thank you so much, James.
Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.